We're going to have a quick look at the Evatronic PD Pioneer. This is a 65 watt 3-port wall charger. Let's check it out. If you haven't already, I don't normally go into this, but please hit the subscribe button. It really does help the channel. I'm aiming to get 1 million subscribers, and I can only do it with your help. So hit the subscribe button. You don't need to ring the bell, but it really helps the channel. Thanks. In the box, it's pretty simple. It's just a power brick, little travel charger. It's got a standard USB-A and 2 USB-C ports. Here's our specifications. It operates on universal input voltages from 100 to 240 volts AC, 50 or 60 hertz at 1.5 amps input. The 2 PD outputs support 5 volts 3 amp, 9 volts 3 amp, 12 volts 3 amp, 15 volts 3 amp, 20 volts 3.25 amps at 65 watts maximum each port. And the QC output supports 5 volts 3 amps, 9 volts 2 amps, 12 volts 1.5 amps with 18 watts maximum. It says total output 65 watts. So those are the 3 outputs. We're going to plug this unit in. I'm going to test it using my little USB tester, and we'll test it both using the QC output as well as the PD outputs. We'll test it on a variety of different devices, which I have. So for this test, I'm going to use my company laptop because this is the only one that I've got that uses USB-C other than my phones. This will draw full power for charging the battery. I'm just running the battery down a bit now. It's only about 60%, so we should be able to work with that. But before I get into the computer, let's just do some tests. First of all, we'll test this using my test resistor, and we'll load it down, and we'll do some current measurements as I deplete the battery a bit on the laptop, and then we'll plug it in and we'll see how it charges. And this is going to be a load test. We'll plug in the test unit and turn on bench power so that I can actually measure something. So we're at 5 volts. This is our standard 5 volt test, and this should give me roughly 2 amps of current, which it is at 5 volts. Now I'm limited to 2 amps just because this cable here won't support more than about 2 amps before the wires start to get warm, but these resistors will get hot relatively quickly, and as you can see, I'm drawing 2.12 amps at 5 volts. Resistors are starting to get toasty warm now. I wouldn't want to touch those. They're getting quite hot. It will actually melt the solder that's soldering them together. At again, the voltage is staying stable at 2.23 amps. If we put this onto the PD test, also it heats up this connector because this is limited to 3 amps. That's why I've done this, set the resistor combination up so that I don't draw more than 3 amps, because that's the limit for your standard USB charge cable. And as you can see, again, it's holding stable. 4.97, 4.98 volts, 2.25 amps. And this is going to get warm pretty quick. Also is monitoring the temperature of the electronics here on the board and the temperature of the connector, because this is all going to start to get warm. Still stable at 5 volts, 2.25 amps. As you can see, the board is starting to heat up now, just from the current. We're at 90 degrees now. I'm going to stop this before it gets any hotter, because we are drawing full current, so the power supply is not even getting warm. But what is getting warm is this little board here starting to warm up. So I don't want to draw too much power from this, as I don't want to damage it, obviously. The next test we can do is I'm going to plug the computer in. We'll plug the computer in through this connector using a USB QC to USB-C. So I'll plug that into my, ouch, that resistor was still hot, and I put my arm on it. We'll plug this into the laptop and plug it into here, and we'll see what the laptop does, whether it will kick the voltage up. It should. Oh, looks like this one's, may not figure this out with this particular adapter on here. Looks like the computer doesn't like this cable. It might be this cable. May not have the data transfer. I'll try a different cable. We'll try this with my phone and see whether this cable supports QC3 charging with my phone. So it's still only charging at 5 volts. Let me grab a different cable. Alright, I got a data cable here. This one here should pass more than just the power. I'll plug this into my phone first of all and see that it shows that it's going to charge in QC2, which is what my phone supports. It's charging at 8.83 volts and at just under an amp of power using QC2. We'll try that same data cable on the laptop and see what it shows, if it does anything. And this time it's going to, oh, the laptop still is only showing it as unknown. So this might not pass QC3, or this connector here might not pass QC3, because on my laptop it's still only showing at the lower voltage at 5 volts. Although if I plug a straight PD cable in, I can't measure it though. That's the only thing. I won't be able to measure it, but I'll know on my laptop, because my laptop will actually tell me that it's charging, and it will tell me how quickly it's going to charge. If I unplug this and put a real PD cable on here, which unfortunately I won't be able to measure because I don't have a meter for USB-C, but if I plug in one of the PD ports here and plug it into that one and plug it into the laptop at the same time, laptop should kick into full charging here momentarily, and it tells me it's plugged in. So it's charging now at the full rate. I'm just watching a video in the background here on my laptop just to give it something to do, and momentarily it will tell me how much longer it'll be to fully charge, and this will accept 65 watt charging, and that's what this will output, is 65 watts. One thing I can do is I can plug both my phone and the laptop in at the same time, and we'll see that my phone has gone into fast charging at 8.83 volts at 1 amp, and the laptop is still charging at full power. So it's telling me here 42 minutes remaining to full charge. I'm at about 65%. Actually, I'm probably at 70% now. What's it say? 42 minutes left to full charge. So this is giving this 65 watts, and I've got 8.85 at 0.8 amps going to my phone on QC 2.0. Got another device that supports quick charge. I'm going to grab that and we'll plug that in and see what it does. A couple of other devices I have that I can plug in. I've got my brand new S20 FE, which I've never used. I bought this phone, I don't know, months ago. The only reason I bought it was because it's got a micro SD slot, and I wanted a phone with a micro SD slot, so I bought one while I still could. but I haven't even turned it on yet. I just charge it up once in a while to make sure the battery is gonna not go dead, and I'll continue to use this old S9, which I've had for 4 years, until it dies, and then I've got a new one. But let's plug this one in, see what it's going to take for a charge. Is it going to be QC2 or QC3? No, it's also charging at 9 volts. 1.6 amps so this time, right? My battery's at 87%, so I might as well let this thing charge up. But QC2, this one's charging at 1.6 amps because this one can charge a little faster than the old one, which can only charge at 1 amp for this one. Again, this is a 4-year-old phone though. Actually, it's more than 4 years old. It's still going strong. Like, you know, I mean, I've been using the phone all day, and I've still got 80% of my battery, and I probably had 75% when I plugged it in here for the last 5 minutes or so. So this one here could last me several more years before I actually have to break down and use the new one. But I've got the new one, and I got a case and everything for it, just for the day when it's going to get used. But here we are charging this one. Now if I unplug the computer, what I'm wondering is, will this charge go faster? Let's see whether it will change anything here. It's going to do some recalculating. It looks like it's still the same QC 2.0, but it's still charging at 8.8 volts, 1.25 amps. Plug the computer back in, it actually goes off and comes back on as it fires up. So that is that, and see, now we're at 89%. Let's just try this on, I have a tablet here as well that uses USB-C. Let's just see what this tablet, what does it switch to? It's also QC 2.0. That might be the limitation of this little device. I don't know whether it supports 3 or only supports 2, but this one here is charging at 5 volts at 0.7. But then again, this tablet is not dead, so don't read into that anything, because it's not, the battery is fully charged on it. It's normally just left plugged in. But here we go on the phone again. It should kick up here. There we go. There we go, 1.6 amps. Power supply here is starting to get a little bit warm. Not hot, but I can just start to sense that it's warming up a bit. So we know that this is working. It's putting out several amps. It's putting out a few amps to the computer at least. And now I'm down to 1 amp because the battery on the phone is becoming more fully charged. Also, just plug into the QC port here instead of the USB-C. We'll plug that one in and see what it shows. Plugging into the phone. It should kick into the same. It should kick into 9 volts as well. And it does. It's exactly the same as going through this adapter. And this adapter here also may limit the amount of current. I don't know what this is rated. This is just one that came with a phone for transferring data, and it's a USB-C to USB-A adapter. But again, I get the same results plugging directly in to the QC port, PD port 1 or PD port 2. As soon as I plug it in, then it indicates that it's charging. The charging indicator on the computer is indicating that it is charging, as we can see. And it's plugged in. But when I plug it in through the other cord going through the meter, it's just indicating it's plugged in, but it's not indicating that it's charging. Final test I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to charge up 3 things at the same time. I'll charge my existing phone using the standard QC USB-A through the meter. I'll charge my new phone using USB-C. I've got the laptop charging with USB-C, so let's plug the new phone in, and it should indicate that it is charging, which it is. And now I will plug in this adapter and plug this phone in as well. So now I've got 3 devices charging at once. And we'll see whether this kicks up to the higher voltage on this phone, or whether it's going to charge it at a lower voltage. The conclusion I can come to is when all 3 devices are being charged, the standard USB-A output is limited to your standard USB charging, 5 volts. It looks like it's limited to 0.5 amp as well when the other 2 ports are in use and they are being used for fast charging. I've got all 3 device is running on here. I just want to see what rate we're charging at. Looks like this one's charging at 5 volts. What if I unplug the computer? Now, as you can see, when I unplugged the computer, it jumped up to 1.17. Looks like when devices are plugged into both PD ports and the USB-A port, that this one's going to be limited at 5 volt 1.3 amp because it's now exceeding the maximum power of the unit itself. But I am able to charge 3 devices, and this laptop is now showing that it's at 27 minutes left to full charge. So it is charging quickly. If we look down at the screen here, it hasn't been charging that long, and I'm now at 27 minutes to full charge. So we know that this is charging at full power. So I'm able to charge 3 devices at the same time. This phone here is now, what are we at on this one? I think this one's probably about 95 or, oh no, this phone's at 100% now. This phone's now at 100%, so that one's off. This phone is now at 82% and fast charging. Okay, after running this for the last, I don't know, half an hour or so, it's warm to the touch, it's not hot. I was considering popping this thing apart and showing what's inside, but I don't know that I can get into this one without destroying it. It seems to be pretty well assembled and, you know, welded together. Looks like they've laser welded the plastic together. So I don't know that I can get into this without destroying it. And since I fully intend to use this unit for charging devices up, the fact that it has 2 USB-C outputs and a QC that I can take advantage of and charge 3 different devices at once, I think this might be relatively useful for me to use. So I'm not going to rip this one apart as much as I would like to open it up and show you guys what's inside it. I just don't want to wreck it. So I'm going to leave it at that. It does what it says. It puts out lots of power. I charged my laptop. It's now sitting at, it hasn't been on that long, I'm at 90, what do we got here? 97% of my charge, and it only took it, what, half an hour to do that, to bring it up from 60 to 97%. So it is charging at what they claim, 65 watts. I charged up my cell phone on it in a matter of a few minutes. It does what they say. I'll give you another close-up look so you can look at the specs as printed right on the unit itself. Here's our specifications. 65 watt 3-port charger. Okay, PD 1 and 2 outputs, 5 3 amps, 9 at 3 amps, 12 at 3 amps, 15 volts at 3 amps, 20 volts at 3 1/4 amps, 65 watts max each port, and the QC output 18 watts maximum. But it says total output power 65 watts. So that's something to keep in mind. It's 65 watts maximum to each port, 18 watts maximum, but your power output is 65 total. So 65 to 1 port at a time. Like if you're powering one device, 65, which is no different than other things. Like, you know, I notice when I go to the public car charging stations, you know, for electric cars, the level 2 chargers, it'll say 6.6 kilowatts shared. Okay, great. Or was I going before I was interrupted? Okay, yeah. The electric car station's no different. It'll say 6.6 kilowatts shared, which means that if somebody else is charging up their car, you get 3.3 instead of 6.6, which means it's going to take a lot longer to charge when you got half the power. So 2 ports, 65 watts shared between the 2, and same with 18 watts on this one. Anyway, link to this is in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.